I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we have another installment of Cursed Films.
Dun, dun, dun. Wait. I was going dun, 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 and you were all wooing. I feel out of the loop.
Dun, dun, woo!
Cursed Films!
Human skeletons! Anyways.
Okay.
All right.
Anyways, so in today's installment, last episode we did on the Cursed Films, we did Poltergeist. So if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go ahead and listen to it. Today we're going to talk about Antrum.
Antrum.
Everyone's biggest fear when it comes to horror movies.
I think this is probably from what people know about cursed films, this is probably the most cursed film on the viewer.
It's very tricky. Because there is a definite sensation of virality to it, in sense of this is just good marketing, you know.
Right.
there is a bit of that because there was a movie not long ago, Poughkeepsie Tapes.
Oh, I love
the
Poughkeepsie Tapes.
The Poughkeepsie Tapes, before it was fully recognized, they were trying to pull a Blair Witch on us.
They were.
You know, they were definitely like, oh, this is an underground thing. This is, you know, what you're
not supposed to watch it.
You're not supposed to watch it, and it actually executes it well. So I think Antrum might have some built-in bits of that. But let's do our deep dive first.
Well, there's so many found footage movies and things like that are just creepy. Megan is found just recently.
Megan is missing.
Megan is missing. Sorry.
Megan is missing.
Megan is found.
Part two.
Part two. This is a big guy with a can opener.
This is our third episode that we're filming.
It's a big guy with a can opener.
Oh, God. It jarred. What I was going to say.
Spoiler alert. Sorry. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Oh, my God.
Oh.
Anyways, it jarred Gen Z. They had no idea that this film existed until, I think last year it went insanely viral on TikTok.
Which is so funny because I remember watching and being like, that's such a good movie. It was like in 2011 when it came out or something.
Right. And then it's the kind of movie that you're like, oh, you know what? I can make that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You
it
absolutely
really
could.
is.
I've got my cell phone and I'll just go out and make that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big can opener. It's so bad.
Oh my God.
You're messed
Spoiler
up,
alert. I mean, it's an old movie, but still, if you haven't seen it.
Well, you should watch it. It's very good. It's very, very disturbing.
It's so disturbing. It's so disturbing.
Anywho, so it jarred the Gen Zs. That's all I have to say. And they are all freaking out, like a bunch of 13-year-olds that honestly should watch this movie. They should watch
it because, you're not supposed to talk to people.
Yeah, do not talk to people on the internet like us, I guess. But, you know.
Not like us. We're normal.
No, I know. But, we're out here preaching.
Don't talk to people like us. We're freaks.
No, preaching. Don't talk to random people on the internet. And here we are.
It's like, send us your mail.
Yes.
Send us
That's
mail.
the point I'm trying to make.
Send pictures of your ghosts.
I'm not trying to say we're creepy people in that way, at least. But
no, God, no.
Anywho, Antrum. So Antrum is a feature-length horror film that was shot in the late 1970s. It is said to cause anyone who watches it to die shortly after viewing, with the mysterious tragedies that have occurred associated with it.
It's the classic Ring syndrome.
Actually, we'll talk about that because a lot of people compare it to The Ring.
Chris, have you seen the original?
Oh, God, no. There's question as to whether it exists.
Exactly.
Wow.
I mean, when it comes down to it, it literally lives in a void of, did somebody just, is it an urban legend? You
right.
know? Really? Because it's you would think that there would be something of it. You know, you think you would be able to stumble upon.
Right.
Because let's face it, you can find almost anything. You know, this country is built on digging. You know, however, the way it's presented is so intriguing.
Oh,
you
yeah.
find yourself going, oh, well, maybe there was.
In the way, and we'll talk about this too, but the way that Antrum kind of introduced itself to all these situations is very bizarre as well,
Yes.
which makes it kind of make sense that there's kind of no trace of it anymore.
Okay.
Anyways, so Antrum is about a supernatural forest that two siblings wander into, and basically they dig a hole to hell, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's all about Satanism. And this is right before the Satanic Panic. So
Might have been at the
beginning.
very beginning.
Yeah.
Because late 70s, early 80s was the gestation period
of the Satanic, Panic, which would honestly, this movie would cause any kind of Satanic Panic because it is heavily involving the depiction of the devil and things like that, and just causing mayhem. Anyways, so supposedly the film appeared mysteriously at several film festivals in 1979. Now, mind you, it's the 70s. They have to literally send you
hand deliver
reels, massive reels
Yeah.
of film to these festivals. So the fact that it just showed up and nobody knows where it came from is weird. So several festival managers and workers died mysteriously post-viewing. And the film then went on to kill many of the others over the course of its existence.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Also, the film has displayed supernatural qualities that cause it to disappear and reappear at will.
Okay.
Basically, let's start with the deaths of the programmers.
Okay.
So Antrum first surfaced in 1979 when it was submitted anonymously to various festivals, but was never accepted or screened by the festival programmers.
Because they all died.
Well, no, the point being is that so when you enter into a film festival, there's a panel of people who watch your film first to make sure it's appropriate for their festival, but also to see if they want to accept you. Neither of those things happened with Antrum.
Okay.
They just literally, the day of the film festival, appeared on the footsteps of the theater, pretty much.
Gracious.
There was no explanation for how the reel was submitted, and somehow believed it to be the work of the devil himself.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay.
After receiving Antrum, festival programmers began to die mysteriously. Janet Hilberg was one of the first victims of the film. She suffered a fatal seizure after a screening of Antrum.
Just after a screening, just had a seizure that killed her?
Yes.
Whoa.
Then Ton Stylum died of electrocution. And then the last programmer, Joe Berenger, met his fate when he was stung by a stonefish.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
The weird part was the stonefish was in the movie theater.
Whoa.
Ooh. What is a stonefish?
A stonefish is a fish that looks like a rock, and it's usually in the water, like on near beaches and whatnot. So people step on the stonefish because it has barbs, and they don't usually kill people though. They're not like
In
super
Antrum
deadly.
but you could be
realm,
allergic.
they do.
Anaphylactic shock could obviously happen.
Yes. So in Antrum realm, anything is possible.
Antrum can
I
kill
know.
you. Antrum remembers.
So the deaths of the other four remain unknown.
Do we know where this stonefish was? Like where he was swimming?
That's a great question. I don't know.
What was his name?
Joe Berenger.
Isn't that a director?
I'm sure.
It's Tom Berenger, who's the actor.
Huh. Okay.
But anyway, so while we look that up, the other four programmers, their deaths remain unknown.
Okay.
Because of all this, an interviewee named Nathan Fleet compares Antrum to the Rings Curse Samara video, which is what a lot of people compare it to.
Yeah.
Because it's that same kind of...
Die in 7 days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you wonder, like, is there a part in the film that kind of depicts something like that?
Sure.
And maybe that's where they got the idea for the Samara video.
I could see them like learning about this and then being like, we should kind of remake this.
Right.
But that would be in Japan because the original was Japanese.
Yeah,
Well,
Ringu.
Yeah,
yeah.
Anything
So-
on the stonefish, Chris? Wow.
No.
So it's where are stonefish typically like?
I think they're Pacific.
Are
I
they?
think Australia, I know.
That's what I was thinking.
I
Is
was just saying,
Australia?
I was Australia. Australia,
I mean,
it'll kill you.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Because this would happen in multiple different countries.
Wow, really?
So,
Okay.
the first incident after that film festival would be the Budapest Theater fire. Now,
Okay.
this is the next tragic Antrum death episode. It would occur in Budapest, Hungary, at a movie theater. Antrum was screened in the theater in 1988, and the only time it would ever reach the big screen.
Okay.
While Antrum was rolling, the building spontaneously caught fire. Now, commonly movie theater fires begin in projector rooms, but this one did not.
Okay.
Instead, the fire seems to have been started by the audience members themselves.
What?
Yeah. And when the small room was set ablaze, it took 56 people with it as it collapsed
This was while Antrum was playing or after?
while Antrum was playing, while people were in the movie
They
watching.
set it ablaze?
Yes.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Chris is still looking for the stonefish.
Keep reading. I will catch you up. There are some interesting developments.
Oh. Presumably, the film reel should have burned as well, but it did not.
What? Bruh.
Now, due to the nature of the tragedy and the elusiveness of Antrum, it became a cult film. So, like, people became obsessed with
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
Antrum
really
at that
interesting.
point.
That's very interesting.
That was when the next death incident would happen
Whoa.
in San Francisco.
Okay.
So we've jumped across the pond now. This is the last known incident caused by Antrum. It also occurred in a movie theater in San Francisco in 1993.
Okay.
As the film gained notoriety, the theater decided to have a showing. Now, I don't know who was the programmer at this movie theater, but
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I would screen it.
really,
Yeah. If I got the chance to. Yeah. I mean, is it really going to kill everybody?
Well, I mean, it's got a pretty decent track record thus far. If this is
Yeah, but
true.
okay. I mean, I'm still needing to be convinced.
Okay.
But
Well, the Antrum movie's curse theory aside, the San Francisco audience, fully aware of the film's reputation, entered the room willingly.
Mm-hmm.
What started as a normal film screening quickly turned into horror as the audience grew increasingly anxious.
oh,
But the weirdest thing about this is that the popcorn had been laced with LSD by a theater worker.
whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
okay.
And so
So the theater worker was like, we're gonna watch this trippy movie. I'm gonna very illegally get everybody stupid high.
yeah, on
Wow.
LSD.
Wow.
And the audience started stampeding towards the exit. And that's when they discovered that they were all locked in. And so it resulted in a riot that led to the deaths of several people, including a pregnant woman.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, there's a movie directed by Gaspar Noé. Mm-hmm. Do you remember? We watched it where they're all in that like dance club.
Oh,
Yeah, and
irreversible?
No. It's definitely not irreversible. No, they're all in the dance. This is new. This is
It's new?
newer. Yeah,
Oh.
they're all in a dance club, and and
Oh,
it gets laced.
yes.
And yeah, it's like the punch gets or something like that.
Yes.
Gets laced with LSD, and they all go insane. And yeah, and then there's like a ton of death and craziness. Maybe
That's very
I'm
true.
thinking I think that he maybe was inspired by this.
It's
happening.
possible.
Yeah.
So after this incident, Antrum would then disappear for almost 20 years.
Whoa.
And that was when two actors turned directors basically decided to make it into a mockumentary type movie
Okay.
called Antrum, the Deadliest Film Ever Made.
Okay.
So the Canadian horror film Antrum includes both documentary and feature style sections, the latter of which is said to cause anyone who watches it to die shortly after viewing, with the mysterious tragedies. The subject of Antrum, the Deadliest Film Ever Made, documentary pieces, Antrum begins with a mini mockumentary that discusses the possible origins and contents of the contained feature film.
Okay.
Additionally, the found footage film has also been found to have supernatural qualities as well, where it starts and stops randomly. And throughout the mockumentary section, various interviewees also discuss the history of the devil in the film, as he does play a major role in Antrum. Mm-hmm. After the mockumentary portion, it is revealed that Antrum has resurfaced and made available for viewing, and a warning/legal disclaimer follows, reminding audiences that they are watching the film at their own risk.
Ooh.
Given the history of Antrum and its supposed curse, any audience who watches it could be subject to a horrific death.
Gracious.
The interior new Antrum movie itself is definitely unsettling, but most of the overall film's impact comes from the supposed threat of real harm after viewing.
Okay.
The entire horror effect of Antrum, the deadliest film ever made, hinges on false advertisement. So this crosses a line that many movies don't, as it generally is assumed that the marketing for a film is telling the truth about what its story entails, who made it, and whether it's based on true events. This could be viewed as a less than ethical move on the part of new Antrum's creators, and also greatly risks triggering vulnerable audience members despite the disclaimer. But it also helps give the movie its resonance and impact. So they really sold this as being like, if you watch this new movie.
So they remade it.
Yeah, basically.
They did. It's not the original movie?
It's very peculiar and very strange because, no, there is no evidence of this real movie.
Okay.
So it's definitely wavering line. It's a Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
You know, is what we're looking at. We're looking at a very carefully constructed and crafted history that kind of goes around and is pulling from what we as tenants of horror kind of understand as the beats of the story, you know, and that's kind of the whole thing is there's no evidence or truth to the 1979 movie at all. Like there's nothing prior to the new movie, the one that just recently came out. And even the writers of that were like, well, we had to create a lot of this just to tell the story, you know, because we don't know what the story, because they don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, how do they know?
Right,
exactly. So interesting.
You just know the plot of the kids digging a pathway to hell.
Right.
Got it.
So
do we know what Antrum means?
No.
So it's a great name.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why.
I don't know.
I don't know what it means, but it's a great name.
It's
what'd you find out about the rockfish?
I couldn't find anything on the rockfish, but what I found was a deepening storyline of this all being fabricated, like the whole of it being fabricated, because the writers of the Antrum cursed movie mockumentary talk about how they created it, you know, and how they were pulling on things and what would be really scary, and how the very thought of a cursed movie was the seed that they followed. So what's interesting is there is a book from Robert Chambers called The King in Yellow. And if you're not familiar with The King in Yellow, it is written in the late 1800s, and it is very much the Antrum story. It is. There is a stage play called The King in Yellow. In the book, The King in Yellow, several people come into contact with this play, either written or attempts to perform it or things of that nature. No one gets the second act because by the second act, everyone is stark raving mad.
Ooh.
And the only attempts of performing ended one in a fire, one in the audience ripping each other apart like animals. And that storyline is where H.P. Lovecraft started his journey, was with Robert Chambers' King in Yellow. In fact, The King in Yellow is Hastur in the book of Robert Chambers wrote, and Hastur is one of Lovecraft's gods, one of the name that he used for the gods. So it's interesting because it's following a pattern of storytelling that's very old and very long, because we just talked about The Ring. Mm-hmm. There was a movie, I want to say it was Demons. It was just called Demons, in which people watching a movie all were possessed by watching the movie. They're watching the movie, and inside the movie theater, they all turned into demons and ripped each other apart. Very scary movie. Yeah. And that was like a 70s, 80s like horror film, where by watching the movie, it caused you to, go insane or go crazy. Even In the Mouth of Madness. Do you remember In the Mouth of Madness? Did you ever see that? So
no, I've never
worth
seen that.
watching. In the Mouth of Madness. Sam Neill plays a character who is he's an insurance detective, trying to secure a book that a writer has written, but everyone who reads the book goes insane. And then by time he comes back around, they have turned the book into a movie. And now the world has ended. It's the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
In the Mouth of Madness.
All right.
Worth watching. Anyway, I find it interesting because, like I said at the very beginning, with the Poughkeepsie. Oh, that's so hard to say for some reason.
It's okay.
Poughkeepsie.
Not ski.
There's not a ski. Poughkeepsie. The Poughkeepsie.
Yep.
It feels weird.
Poughkeepsie.
The Poughkeepsie tapes. Also, a very interesting thing, because the whole notion of the Poughkeepsie tapes is that there are snuff films that you can buy and purchase and go out. And there is no doubt in my mind that snuff films exist.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think there's ever been a case where a snuff film was found and the people who made it were found. And it's like, well, that can't be true either. There's either snuff films, and because they're snuff films, somebody was arrested or some action happened. But it turns out that it's at best you'll have like home movies that people are making, but I feel like Antrum sits right in this crazy place, which is, you know what? This is just on the edge of believable and plausible, but it's also...
So no one knows anyone that has a copy of the film.
Yeah, as near as I can tell, it doesn't exist.
So,
but it can come back up if it wanted to.
If it wanted to, right?
Yeah. So in the lore of it all, that's how it operates. Is that
so? Madison, how would like a witch or something like like a bad witch or someone using black magic or anything? How would they go to create this type of movie?
Just so you know, an antrum is a natural chamber or cavity in bone or other anatomical structure.
Okay, it's also a dope name for a movie.
It's a dope name for a movie.
Yeah,
and knowing that that's it, the natural chamber within living bodies, a place where something evil can hide.
Right. And to answer your question, how you would go about creating something like this, I don't even know if that is in our realm of capabilities.
If you look at history of cursed things, you're almost always going to find yourself talking at least about Macbeth.
Right.
And the story of that being that he took from a grimoire and he actually wrote out spells that witches would use, and he wrote them into the script of Macbeth, causing it to be a cursed play. The reason why it's
You're
cursed
in
play.
a theater, by the way.
Oh, I don't actually subscribe to that that concept
can't
of not saying Macbeth in a theater.
Scottish play.
I will say though, I've had an experience with the Scottish play, literally trying to kill me and my castmates practically. I did a show one time, and there was. It nothing to do with this play, mind you. Literally the exact opposite. I think we were doing like The Boyfriend or something, which is just a campy British musical. But anyways, the point was the main characters are 5 women. And so it was me and 4 other girls who are playing this. And we are in 90% of the show, mind you. And so there was these minor male characters that kind of trickle into the show every once in a while, and one of those people, this is the first show they ever did, so they wanted to test out if the Scottish play thing if works. So in before one of the shows one night, he says, the Scottish play. And of course we send him outside, make him do the little ritual, and then you have to like spit, say, you have to curse, turn around 3 times, knock, and ask to be let back in. All that jazz. It's a thing. And anyways, so mind you, that show went fine. The next night, and that happened on opening night also. The next night, all 5 of us had violent flu symptoms. We were we'd go on stage and run off after the scene and just vomit everywhere.
Whoa.
Afterwards. Every single one of us had it.
That sounds like a Scottish
plague.
plague.
That is a healthy curse.
Yeah. A healthy and well situated curse for sure.
I have always ascribed that it is only while you're in production. It is only while you're in rehearsals or performance production. And I don't completely subscribe to the notion behind it. Because it comes to the idea, why is it cursed? Why is it haunted?
Right.
What makes it cursed? Because there's, of course, the great actors' riot that happened when 2 different productions of the show murdered each other.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of like, well, that's a lot of dark history around this. And the question was, did Shakespeare use actual things? Turns out that the Antrum movie, they used, and this is the modern one.
Okay.
That they were trying to, because again, nobody has any clue as to even if there is a 1979 version. What they have is a recreation or a straight up fabrication. But they did use the Lesser Key of Solomon and pulled text directly from it, which again, when you're like, I'm going to be really true to the subject matter, so I'm just going to pour a bunch of of stuff that I found in this book that is revered by many as being a kind of grimoire and a dangerous book. And I'm just going to pour it into this movie. So there's plenty of darkness and bizarrety.
For those who don't know, what's the Lesser Key of Solomon?
So, of the many types of spell books that you can come across, there are certain ones that hold this sort of deep fascination. Lesser Key of Solomon is a book that has a lot of symbols in it that became the sigils used by many occult practitioners. It is... The concept being that King Solomon the Wise actually employed and utilized a lot of magic users of the period of the time, and he gathered them together to create basically a tome of spells and a tome of symbols and things to protect and things to attack. So the Lesser Key of Solomon, his Lost Book of Moses, these are books that people have ascribed a lot of power to and a lot of notions to.
Yeah. So... I actually kind of picked up on that too as I was going through, that it does sound like they, because there are people who have watched Antrum and truly believe that it's cursed. But then there are some people who have watched it because you can find it on Tubi. There's some people that are like, it's not cursed. But, it's interesting with this. Also, the fact that the 2 directors are like no-name actors, comedic actors also, which is really weird.
Well, apparently in an interview, they were like, what really scares us, what would be a really scary thing, and they landed on cursed film.
Right.
And they went from cursed film to creating Antrum. So there is this notion that, because, if you try to find like news articles or anything, you'd think there would be more news.
Sure. You would think.
Before 2016, 2017.
Right.
This strangely reminds me of the Memphis 3 for some reason.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I guess it happened in a forest, or like a small forest, and they were talking about that they worship Satan,
right,
devil worshippers, and all of that, and they killed these kids and all. And then we found out later that they weren't actually, it wasn't anything satanic whatsoever.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know. Just kind of I feel like people are so quickly to go like Satan.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, for entertainment purposes alone, purporting and creating a legend to attach to your film. Because most times you're creating a film that spawns a legend, but what if you spawn a legend
into a film?
Right.
Well, it is also interesting, in the topic of everybody's so quick to be like Satan, I think that's this film was meant for Americans who are horrified of Satan. And most people don't understand witchcraft. They don't get it. And they immediately think, because that is the way it's always been, is that's devil worshiping, you know? And so it's not out of the realm. It's not a far stretch of the imagination for most people that it would be a cursed film because it's worshiping Satan and honoring.
So you said earlier, because Madison, I feel like you would know better than most people how to put a curse on someone or something. Just because, you've read the most witchy books and all of that stuff. And you've explained to me that 99.9% of witchcraft is not cursing anything. And it's, it's all...
I mean, you can do some baneful magic.
But that's what I'm saying is like, is this actually a possibility? Like how much do you think that this is actually, how much of you thinks that this is actually a possibility? Because it's, if someone who created it, someone who created the film, they would obviously have to be really, really strong in their abilities to curse or participate in black magic or satanic stuff.
So here's the kicker. Why I don't think that this is witchcraft, if it is anything, because most witches don't subscribe to the traditional ideologies of Satan, if you will. There are plenty of entities that subscribe to baneful practices that you can definitely call upon for your baneful practices if you want to. And there are some really horrifying entities. Ever heard of the Morrigan? She'd be down for some like this. Excuse me, sorry. Jameson, don't listen.
Goodness gracious. Guess we're going to have to cut that one out.
Sorry. Anyways,
she's never done that.
Well,
I get very into this conversation.
Yes.
Anyways, so the point is there are baneful entities, but I don't think that if this was a practicing witch who wanted to cause mass mayhem or anything like that, they would atone this to Satan. Okay. They would have made it about something else, because most entities that would want to go with this plan, if this was a thing, they'd want it to be about them, not,
or something absolutely obscure. It would be more likely to be like a animated story that had no horror in it. If you really want to kill people, why would you set it up to be a story that is horrifying when you want more people to watch it? The trickiness of this whole endeavor is the idea of how fantastical the elements are. It's one thing to have a list of deaths that are odd or peculiar. It's another thing when masses of people are dying in fires where, because to begin with, that's newsworthy. That's the kind of thing that will show up. And being the kind of people we are, we would have heard of it prior to this occurrence of the mockumentary. The mockumentary is the extent of our knowledge of the movie. So even like when people are talking about it, all those things are things that are covered in the mockumentary, not necessarily from news sources or from eyewitness accounts or anything of that nature.
I also want to say that their image of the devil is Baphomet.
It's Baphomet, yeah, absolutely.
So,
that's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that even more so tells me...
That's a new movie, though.
That's the new movie.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the new movie.
We're not sure the old movie exists.
Exactly.
I'm saying there's a good chance that it does not exist.
If it does, this is...
It's like robotic Baphomet.
This is how I would make it.
Yeah, robotic Baphomet.
If it does, this is how I would make it.
Okay, I'm listening.
I would film it. So if I was like a devil worshiper,
right?
If I was a devil worshiper, I wanted to make a film that killed a bunch of people.
There you go.
Right. Obviously, you have communications that I obviously don't know about, but you would have a communication with demons or Satan or whatever, and it's about 2 kids that dig a hole to hell, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. So you're going to film it with the 2 kids, and then you're going to immediately sacrifice them upon the film's completion. That's exactly how you make a cursed film.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
However, again, one of the things about curses that is very difficult is that and a film is a great way to do this because you are indoctrinating people into the story of the curse. You are showing them images and you're showing them a path to the inevitable end. However, curses are very difficult to place upon people who are not of the same mindset.
Right.
Curses, and this was a big tagline in the mid 80s to 90s when they would use voodoo as the evil. Voodoo. They misappropriated voodoo, but they would always say, well, if you don't believe in voodoo, it will not work on you.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible simplification of what's going on, because in many cultures, what they're really using are roots and concoctions and salves, things that absorb through the skin or you eat that cause you damage. There's no amount of belief is going to keep you from dying if you drink strychnine. That is not going to be the case. So there's this divergent thing where there are people who go into trance-like states, and because of their faith, if they see a certain person, that person levels something at them.
Yeah.
They have grotesque reactions to it. So now you're dealing with these 2 camps. If somebody really wants to do damage to you, real damage to you, they're not going to use curses. They're going to poison you. They're going to set upon you with herbs and concoctions and things that they know to do damage. But if you are a devout follower of a very specific ideology and belief, and you can pull off authority in that realm, you can absolutely psychologically damage a person. You can make them do almost anything.
Yeah.
You can cause all sorts of hijinks.
You're saying that it might not be a curse film where they sacrifice the kids. You're saying it could be a film made by someone who understands the psyche enough to create a film that makes them go, bringing up Gaspar Noé again, the end of Irreversible, and even the camera spin in Irreversible was supposed to make the audience vomit.
Right.
Which is genius.
Exactly. No, but, and that falls right into that line. If you wanted to do something like that, think about using subliminal imaging.
Yes.
Think about using tonal. You can set theta wave patterns into your soundtrack, setting people off, making them sort of ease into a near hypnotic state, really. There are ways to do it that are creepifying, but again, curses are such a strange thing. It takes an enormous amount of will. And you rarely have curses that are widespread. You have a lot of focal, sniper, I'm cursing that person, and these are the because it takes all your focus and all your energy and everything you have to focus it into a willful action. Versus, I'm going to create an object that when people touch it, they die. It's well, what people? All people. All people? Right. Every person? Yes, all people. It's well, what's in the object? Well, it's just an object, but I'm going to put all this ill will into it. It's your ill will is going to kill everyone. Everyone who touches it. Are you sure? 90% sure. Well, that's not enough.
Right. Yeah, and that is the biggest point with this. With witchcraft, if you're doing baneful witchcraft, which I don't always recommend. Some people deserve it. Some people deserve a little bit of baneful magic. But anyways, that's a different topic. The point is that you're absolutely right. When you put enough focus into, that's why it's important to have names and things like that.
Absolutely.
Because the more intent you are on harming that one person, or even a couple people, it's going to be much more powerful, because something that widespread for one person, it's just going to thin out your power.
Absolutely.
Like, just to the point where it's not even going to be that impactful, let alone, is it going to be impactful enough to kill an entire theater just from watching it, from one person at least. Now, I don't know.
Now, you would actually it would be easier to try to focus in on a single person and have them kill everyone.
Right.
However, we've learned that it is very hard to, even with serious hypnosis, it's very hard to make people do something that they are morally opposed to. So on top of everything else, you have to find a person who would be willing to carry it out to begin with. Mm-hmm. Because you can't just turn a person who is morally against murder into a murderer. That's not to say that we're not constantly around murderers or people who would do it. But I dare say that the Antrum, because I had only heard of it in the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And I feel strongly, given my obsession with horror movies, that if it were a real movie, I would have heard about it sooner. However, I think I have heard of cursed films, and I have heard of movies that kill people. Therefore, I can't just rule it out outright, because I think that is something that has been talked about and discussed, even to Robert Johnson, who sold his soul to the devil to become a blues musician. Mm-hmm. They're saying that there's a track where the devil comes and gets him. There's a track where he gets shot and killed, because he was killed while recording a record, and it's the 13th track of his record. Ooh. And they're like, if you hear this track, you'll hear the devil, and so that's worth an episode.
Oh, absolutely.
The Robert Johnson story. Robert Johnson went down to the crossroads, sold his soul to the devil. So yes, basically. So there's lots of rumors as to where it is. No, you can't hear it. I mean, it was never released, but there are people who believe that there is an existing recording, because they did record it. They just don't, they didn't release it because a man walked into the sound booth and shot him dead while he was recording. Mm-hmm.
There's so many theories on that, where you play records backwards and you hear incantations and stuff.
The 60s, people actually did. They laid things into the back, and they were just messages, but it became like, oh no. Mm-hmm. And some groups kind of leaned into the dark of it.
So there you go. Whether you want to believe that Antrum is a truly cursed film,
or even exists,
it's a creepy story regardless.
It's a very creepy story.
And good on the writers of the current one.
You obviously created an amazing urban legend, or uncovered a vast conspiracy.
Right, exactly. So there you go, y'all. You can go ahead and dive into your rabbit hole now, I guess. Yeah.
Jump into the Antrum world. And I really didn't look into it until just now, and I was like, oh, you know what? There's enough evidence to suggest that this was all created as a marketing ploy.
Right.
However, it's a good one.
Absolutely.
It's a good one.
It's very interesting. It's very creepy. Will I watch it? Probably not, just because I'm not taking any risks. But
the mockumentary, Antrum,
the most deadly film
or
whatever
film ever, apparently has no traces of the original movie in it. It's just kind of a mockumentary. Even the parts they showed were actually filmed. So it's not any part of the original film, because again, no one has access to the original film.
Exactly. So with that though, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
Stay spooky, y'all.